Howdy there, partner. I know you wanted to work out in the fields today, but we already had plenty of us in the fields. But I also heard that you worked harder than any of my brothers with getting the house cleaned up. That's no easy feat, you know. In fact, why don't you get yourself cleaned up now and enjoy some food with the rest of us? All right, now get. Oh, hiya there, partner. What you doing up this late at night? Me? Nothing. I'm just remembering simpler times, you know? Ma and Pa are saying I should be getting out there and finding myself a good man, starting a family of my own soon. You're the oldest, my little pumpkin spice. You should be making a real man happy and raising kids of your own. Your ma and I ain't getting any younger, you know. But I don't want to settle down yet. I like things how they are right now. All of us working together, getting this old farm back up and running after the firenadoes, spending time with you and my sister, and getting into trouble when we're found wrestling in the hog's pen. It really reminds me of when I was little. Wrath was a very different place back then. You wouldn't believe that this place used to have weather some 20 years ago, would you? Well, hey, pull up a seat. Let me tell you about it. Back when I was just a wild little thing, this whole land used to be covered in huge fields of hay. I must have been about 6 or 7. It was just me, Sally Mae, and the oldest boy, Jesse, at the time. Jesse was the youngest, of course. I had a pony of my own back then, and she was almost as wild as me. Sally and I loved to ride her together while Jesse was learning how to carve tools out of wood. One year, we had to borrow an old horse mower that had an iron seat on it because Pa had gotten himself hurt. But that stubborn old mule just insisted that we cut our own hay. Somehow, despite his bad leg at the time, he managed to get into the seat with his sickle blade in hand after we got my pony all saddled up. Honestly, if he'd fallen off that thing at any time, it would have killed him for sure. Ma hated it. She couldn't watch him do something so stupid, you know? It worked like that for about a week before Ma called in a favor from my uncle who lived in the next town over. He ran a horse ranch and let us borrow 2 of his big stallions, Prince and Silver. Oh, those were 2 gorgeous horses. They had long, flowing manes and real feathery fetlocks that waved and bounced with every step they took. Oh, fetlocks are that little rounded spot that's just above the hoof. Kinda like where heel is. Here. If you place your toes on the ground, but keep your heels up, yeah, just like that. Where your heel is, that's the fetlock. I do admit, I was smitten with those 2 stallions. I'd wake up before the sun did just to make sure they were still in the old corral. One day, Pa said if I hung onto this thing called a hames, which I found out later were those 2 large pieces of curved wood that you hooked up to the collar, he said I'd be able to stay on one of them while he plowed the field. It took a few tries, but after I managed to get a foot into some part of the harness, I took hold of that hames and got onto Silver's back. Oh, I was hooked from that moment. The gentleness of these magnificent beasts really took me over that day. The rocking motion of his body and each powerful step that happened beneath me. It was like nothing I ever felt before. I truly felt like, no matter what, they would never hurt me on purpose. And the feeling of his warm mane against my skin, that's the kind of feeling that never goes away. I still dream about riding them sometimes. But after that season, we had to give them back. I hear they became studs after that and reared several healthy foals. It was still nice watching them walk down the road, though. But, of course, farm work ain't ever done. We actually had to get ready for winter here. Crazy, right? Wrath? Freezing over? Well, that's what we were prepared for before Satan got his major temper tantrums. So, every year in the fall, we'd start banking the Chimkin house with cow manure. I know it sounds gross, but it really helps. We'd bank the perimeter of the Chimkin house with about 3 feet of the stuff, excluding the door, of course. It sure was a pain getting the water to them, though. We'd have to fill a bucket full of water and carefully move it across the yard with the sled. But that paled in comparison to having to uncover the snow-covered door when we got that blizzard. I know, bad joke. But we wouldn't even have the Chimkins if we didn't bank it. The manure actually offered great insulation and heat, too. You just had to deal with the smell, which I'd say is a good trade-off back then. Since we couldn't really harvest the Chimkins then, we got by on a lot of eggs and milk from the cows. What we didn't need to eat, we sold so we could buy some meat from the town. We actually had a lot more cows back then. Different breeds, too. We had our good old Holstein cows, some Jerseys, and even some Guernsey and Normand. Actually, we also made a lot of butter and cream from their milk, too, especially from the Guernsey and Normand cows. But they were all good cows. Thankfully, we still have some of their offspring here, though it's been a few generations. It was later that following spring that we got a bunch of hogs, goats, and, well, we tried to keep some sheep, but, well, when you got a dragon that's in charge of a whole ring, and he's usually pretty hungry, and sheep are also pretty easy to carry off, well, you get it. Speaking of that spring, there was actually something that Sally Mae and I used to do when we could finally play outside. It was the funniest thing when we were little. She and I would run down to the fields where the cows would graze, and we would be bare-hooved. We desperately needed a break from wearing those heavy winter boots for months, you see. But while we were running, we'd find the biggest, sloppiest looking mud pile we could and step right in the middle of it. We'd watch as all that green slush would work up between our hooves and laugh at how funny it felt. Of course, we'd run down to the creek afterwards and get our hooves washed. It was just some safe, easy fun for a couple of kids, and we never did tell Ma about it. Instead, we'd have to explain why she and I were covered in mud from the creek. Sally and I used to track that stuff everywhere in the house. Oh, it was a great time back then. I miss those days. But hey, we keep moving forward and we keep on living. Let's go back inside. I'm sure the boys could use your help tomorrow, so get some rest, all right? Sleep well, partner.